Today we'll continue our investigation into the ways in which ISVs and enterprise application teams are creating new value by leveraging the latest and greatest integration technologies. And in today's case, we learn about integration platform as a service, or iPaaS. And I would just want to sort of skip back. This is part 3 of a 3-part series. So in the first webinar, we looked at the why, sort of what are the market forces that are driving business applications to become more focused on integrations. So if you missed that and you want some context, again, you can go back and watch those recordings. But I would just want to revisit the subject briefly, because I believe that in today's landscape, ISVs and enterprise applications can find strength in an ability to transcend siloed business functions or processes or data and become a more holistic presence in their customers' experience. So rather than just fulfilling one niche, they can kind of be everywhere at once in their customers' experience. And that's kind of the new paradigm here that we're going to explore. And our guest today, ConnectPlaza, I think they understand that better than most people. And as a result, they've made that their core business. If you're wondering what the heck is an iPaaS and why you should care, then we're in luck today. Because we are joined by the guru of connectivity, Mr. Dennis Lucis. Dennis, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Sean.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Dennis, at Servoi World last year, I had worked with you and Wilco at ConnectPlaza on this subject because I had done some research and became very excited about this subject sometime mid last year. And at Servoi World, I wanted to announce that iPaaS would become an important part of Servoi's strategy for this year, for 2020. But I have to admit that going back maybe 2 or 3 years, I actually didn't know this term. So can you explain what is iPaaS? What is Integration Platform as a Service?
Well, sure. So I guess when you look at the definition, iPaaS, or Integration Platform as a Service, could be considered a suite of cloud services enabling development, execution, and governance of integration flows, connecting virtually any combination of on-premises and cloud-based processes, services, applications, and data within individual or across multiple organizations. So that's kind of like the core definition it is. For us, right. iPaaS stands for the ability to quickly and easily configure, deploy, and manage almost all mission-critical interfaces from within one tool set. And it also means that we focus on a platform that allows users to achieve integration goals without the need for direct coding, and thus allowing also non-developer users to use the product.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have been aware of the term enterprise service bus for longer, and the sort of the description you just gave, I thought was satisfied by ESB. Is iPaaS not the same as ESB? And if not, can you kind of clarify the difference for me?
Yeah, well, I think that, iPaaS and ISB do have similar origins. And in fact, we did learn a lot from using classical enterprise service bus solutions. That's what ESB stands for, in particular on how to improve on them. I also feel that iPaaS is more like an evolution of the classical ESB, where most ESBs tend to focus more towards technical knowledge of the user to implement solutions from a more technological development standpoint, and also requiring more technical know-how. And generally, it has just a greater TCO when implementing ESBs into enterprise organizations, as they are prone to have, our enterprises are prone to have larger developer groups present and do more internal projects. Yeah. Additionally, it's been my experience from working with integration products from over the last 15 years that ESBs were pretty much designed for enterprises, and they do not really fit the purpose for ISVs personally.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So ESB is kind of like the cloud evolution of, or iPaaS rather, is kind of the cloud evolution of ESB, and is maybe more fit for software vendors or for business critical applications, and not in-house kind of data manipulations.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. In some of the research I was doing last year on iPaaS, I actually found it to be quite a crowded marketplace, and understanding who the different players were. And there are some big names and big companies in that space. What makes ConnectPlaza unique, say, compared to the big iPaaS players?
Well, I think first and foremost, I think what makes us unique is that ConnectPlaza has been designed with ISVs in mind and not just enterprises, and making sure that we follow the needs to solve a series of integration problems that ISVs face when delivering their products and services to their end users. And since almost all of their end users require some form of integration, it causes serious problems to deliver managed solutions to solve all these different types of integrations. And our product fits exactly into that space to ensure that all this work for each customer does not necessarily need to be built into the ISV applications. And I guess since our product is easily deployable and embeddable, it has only a small footprint, it fits these use cases perfectly, in opposed to the classical ESBs and some of our competitors, which are more focused on the larger scales and on bigger enterprise integrations.
Right.
Also what also is important is that we do not impose the use of solely cloud-based deployment to our customers, but we give our users full freedom of choice when it comes to choosing their deployment topologies and how they wish to pretty much create their environment.
Right, and I think that what you just said, it makes a lot of sense to me, that ConnectPlaza fits really well with Servoi's ecospace, because we have kind of the same niche, as a development and a deployment technology, being focused on ISVs and enterprise applications, which are business critical, and not for really large IT departments.
Yes.
I think the same challenges fit, and I think that's why ConnectPlaza and Servoi make a good partnership in this ecospace. So in this webinar, I'm happy and proud to announce that Servoi is an OEM partner of ConnectPlaza's, and we're going to dive in a bit deeper into what this means.
Absolutely.
But maybe it makes sense, Dennis, if you can kind of talk about why would someone choose an iPaaS to solve their integration problems? So they have probably some choices about the approaches they take. When does it make sense to go for iPaaS, and when does it maybe not make sense?
Well, what we usually do is we look at what types of use cases we see with our customers in terms of integration needs. And we usually see more than one, actually, in most situations. And what we do is we just break them down into 4 groups, which are basically application integration, or the classical forms of application integration, B2B integration, API management, and data integration. Those are, I think, the 4 main categories that ConnectPlaza really focuses on. And as I already mentioned, most of our customers have several of these use cases in place. Primarily, we see the need, especially in the ISV market, to connect their app to a variety of, either on-premises apps that their end users already have in place, such as ERP systems, CRM, or things like that, or cloud or SaaS-based services that these end users might wish to integrate with. These types of integrations are basically called the application integration group, where the business of the customer needs the ISV and the app of the ISV to be an integral part of the IT landscape. And in addition, and that's where we usually do come in. In addition, we also see a lot of what we call the B2B, or the business-to-business cases, where ISV apps, they gain usefulness for customers by integrating into desirable B2B apps or platforms that are relevant for the branch or business that they are in. For example, and we'll be talking about this soon, is the Reflecta case, where we will be talking about types of integration that really tie into B2B web shop integration, retail platform, and that is also something that we have a lot of experience with.
Okay.
And with all of these types of integration, we usually see a challenge to get the right connection and connectivity between these apps going. And we see that there is a challenge for ISVs to manage security, manage data formats, manage all these protocols. And that's exactly what we've always wanted to help achieve to make this more easy for our ISV partners. And there also, when we look at the horizons, new and newer challenges are arriving with the dawn of APIs and API management, security, authorization, also in relation to GDPR. And we always want to provide tools to ISVs to connect their apps to external APIs, as well as expose and manage their own APIs, making integration into their apps much easier, and also creates a tighter integration into their end users, which helps them secure their market share.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like if you have multiple integrations and you're dealing with this kind of fragmentation both across technical landscapes and also different a bit like B2B, like actually different domains, that you can't easily code your way out of that, and you need to take a more comprehensive, holistic approach.
Yes.
And I think that's where I hear the value of iPaaS come in.
Absolutely.
I should point out this is a webinar series about integrations, and last week we featured another Servoi partner who has enterprise class connectors. And for those of you that were in that webinar and now are in this webinar and wondering maybe what's the difference, I should also offer clarification. I think that what we saw last week was really good for developing.
I think we just lost Sean.
We lost Sean. Sean, are you there?
I think Sean was about to explain a little bit about the webinar before, and I think he was trying to come up with the notion of data connectivity from a driver standpoint, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. Could you elaborate a bit on that, Sean? Or Dennis?
Well, I think, when we compare, if you were to compare, which we could do, is that I think there are different solutions, which they both tackle, or at least want to tackle, the same type of problem, which is integration, or at least to focus on the challenges that integration brings. I think that, when we look at the driver aspect of things, that's one way of approaching it, which is, I think, more from a data perspective. Then you're really talking about data integration, about how can I get data from A to B and how can I expose data through a mechanism of drivers. And I think if your use case, if the case really calls for this type of integration, a solution like that would be very useful. Whereas I think ConnectPlaza, when we look at how we perceive things, is that we tend to look at it more holistically and more think of integration as the exchange of data in the form of what we call discrete messages across the integration flows, which just is a different approach. But I think we have some similarities, but we also have some we could say some differences in approaches and perception, and I think it depends on the fit for purpose case in that situation.
Guys, I'm back. I don't know what happened. I had an internet outage, and I could hear you for a bit, and then I reconnected. But it sounds like Dennis, you picked up my thought and ran with it. So
yeah.
appreciate that. Well, that brings me to my next.
Sean, your screen is not up. So.
Yeah, you have to reshare your screen.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay. Thank you for telling me that.
No problem.
All righty. How about now? All good?
Yeah, we're all good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So Dennis, as you know, Servoi is I may be biased, but a wonderful platform to productively build and deploy business applications, and it has all the tools and technology for things like batching and scheduling and connecting to different data sources and doing complex data operations and transformations. Can you convince me why wouldn't I just build my flows directly, my integration flows directly in Servoi?
Yeah, sure. Well, this is a question, of course, we get a lot. We get a lot of the questions like, why can't I just do it myself? Why can't I just build it and start programming? And I say, sure, you can. And I think, we operate under the conviction that, each tool has its own strengths and weaknesses, and that, we should always employ the tools in the best way that we can. And I believe that integration, like building a UI, like for example, UI structures for business apps, as Servoi does, are, they're separate skill sets, and they require different sets of knowledge on how to build these types of things. And I think, like Servoi, we have built a product around all this knowledge that we have gained over so many years of working with these things, and to make these processes easier by handling all the technical stuff and doing the heavy lifting. And ConnectPlaza has made it its mission to make integration easier and do more configuration based work and handle things like technical protocols, data transport, transformation, deployment, and we have put in 20 years of experience in the field into that. So, and usually that's something that I would always like to put out, is that that's something you just can't code all by yourself, or that's something that you should take into account. And we deliver a lot of the stuff that's been built before already as in the package. And when we look at the focus on the ISV and the efforts to bring integration solutions to their customers, it's all about making it easier to configure and making it easier to deploy, lower the cost of handling integration solutions and things like that. And using an iPaaS like ConnectPlaza makes things much easier, and allows the ISVs to incorporate all this knowledge that we've already prepared for them, not just on the building and deployment phase, but also on the concept of analysis and monitoring. Because we feel that an iPaaS platform, there's no good iPaaS platform when you do not have things like maintenance and logging, security, performance. All these things are not, if they're not into place. So yeah, that's why.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that the idea that a person other than a developer could be responsible for managing this is really compelling, especially for small teams, right?
Yes.
If you're doing this on behalf of your customer, having to go, I know that from experience that technical teams are already stretched. They're already building software and doing DevOps and doing support, right? And then add an integration project on top of that, and you just stress them out, right? So
absolutely.
I think the code versus config is, for me, very compelling, because the total cost of ownership goes up over time as well. And the moment you put an integration live, you're going to be living with it and constantly nurturing it.
Yeah, and also when we look at the way ISVs work, usually we see that ISVs have a dev team that build apps, and then we have like business consultants or implementation consultants that take that app and go to a customer, and implement it. And we figured, why couldn't integration be the same? Why couldn't you have like one or two guys at the ISV side build like these standard connector interfaces, these flows that are needed, and then just hand them over to a business consultant and say, listen, if you double click here, you fill in some values for whatever settings you need, and you click on install, and it's running, and you're good to go. It fits that same model very well.
Right. Okay, well, you've convinced me, but we typically like to show examples of real-world applications from real businesses when we showcase a particular feature or a particular topic. But I can imagine, Dennis, that doing a demo of an iPaaS is a bit tricky to sort of show it, because it is a comprehensive kind of platform approach to a big challenge. Maybe the best way to go about this is to take a look at examples where our own customers have gone with the iPaaS approach.
Oh, sure.
So what I'd like to do is introduce our guest from the company STB, Rutger Slaker. Rutger, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thanks for joining us.
Welcome.
I know that integrations has been an important aspect for STB from a strategic point of view. Can you tell us a bit about who is STB? And
Yes,
we'll get into your integrations.
Yes, STB, one of the co-founders, already a long time ago. We started as a company who only made custom solutions in 1992 because we liked that, and also because we didn't have any solutions, so it was better to make custom solutions then. But later on, we wanted to provide standard solutions, and we went to SaaS, so recurring, so to provide software as a service by subscriptions. But what the vision is from the start, and we also have as tagline, we have power to relate. Now, I think that says already a lot. But we provide CRM systems, by the way. All our systems over the years in our standard system also have CRM as the core functionality. And then it can be very wide. It can there are websites connected, apps connected, financial administration for membership organizations, for instance. So we always see, okay, our vision is that CRM should be the center of an organization, and connecting to other tools or other solutions is very important. So for the customer, you can see it as that they have one system, even if you use different suppliers.
Right. I think it's interesting. You mentioned how STB got their start really with bespoke applications, custom, requirements from individual customers, and then you've gone, to standardize that to become a real SaaS offering. But when we talk about integrations, it almost sounds like full circle that you come back to each customer probably has unique requirements for their integrations.
That's correct.
Yes. Can you talk about how that plays into your strategy?
Yeah, in the past we noticed we had a lot of work per customer because they wanted to connect, for instance, their websites or other solutions. A lot of interactions with different suppliers. The first step for us was to build our REST API. So using the possibilities from Servoi, that we have the REST using the REST abilities for all our modules and entities. So it was a good start. But of course, and then we wanted to avoid to build code for custom or specific connections. For instance, specifics. For instance, we have made connections to HR systems, but then maybe only have one or two customers who use that specific HR system. So we see it as interesting, but also a waste of time to ask our R&D developers to build one module for just one or two customers because we want to provide standard.
Right.
So that's why we were very interested to find. First we looked at ESBs, but we really wanted to find what you call now an iPaaS platform. And so we are able to stick to the standard to provide our REST API, also webhooks, that kind of technology, but also the platform like ConnectPlaza. In this case, we've chosen for ConnectPlaza. It's very useful to be able to connect to other platforms using their API without the need for specific coding.
Right. I'm just going to show a bit of your application while I ask you a bit. Can you talk about, you've begun the process. Can you talk about your first use case when you decided that iPaaS was the right solution? How did you get started? What was the first thing you decided to
what we noticed,
tackle?
we are busy. I think all the ISVs are very busy, and we noticed that, let's say, our sales were a little bit hesitating to sell or to promote. We can call it exotic connections. So,
right.
What the example I told you, that they find the prospects who just want our standard but has a specific HR system, for instance. We also do training institutes, for instance, and the people do training and they get a certificate to prove that they did the training. But for some customers, it's important that in their web portal they have, or in their internet portal, they can find their certificate, for instance, in PDF.
Right.
And of course, for when your salesperson say, okay, can you provide a connection to that specific HR system? Please do so, because then we have a new customer. And me, I'm CTO at STB. I'm responsible to provide the standard and also to do that efficient. So this is a nice example, because such an AR system has also only a standard REST API, and they don't do customization. So that was one of the use cases which say, okay, it's also very interesting, because now we have ConnectPlaza. We ask sales, please hunt for exotic specific connections. That's a good business case, even if we only have one customer for it, because it doesn't interfere in our code and doesn't interfere in our every 2 weeks release frequency.
Right. Right. So do you have can you give us insight into what's in your pipeline in the future of connectivity? Anything that's exciting to you?
Yeah, we have two approaches. First, we will remove, let's say, legacy, the old connections we have with the bookkeeping system. For instance, in the Netherlands, you have Exact and a lot of other bookkeeping system that still uses, so we can see it as old-fashioned XML, non-real-time connections. So we want to use, or we're starting to use ConnectPlaza to automate that using the specific connection of that bookkeeping system and using our standard API, for instance. And also for real-time connections. In the past, it was normal that financial department now and then pressed a button and imported, let's say, invoices, for instance, and they want to have it real-time in their bookkeeping system. So also for that reason, we will remove the legacy and go completely for ConnectPlaza. And there are now more use cases like the HR system, but also, for instance, to e-learning platforms and that kind of platform. There are use cases where ConnectPlaza is very interesting to offer for our customers. And also, they even have a customer now who has also another CRM from our competitor with big departments. That's a struggle, of course. Who wants to connect with who? And that's also where we promote ConnectPlaza and say, okay, please, you have then a solution in the middle, and so we both CRM suppliers can connect to ConnectPlaza and have a good solution for the customer.
Right. Yeah, it feels like it used to be difficult to say yes to these exotic connections, and now it's completely inverted, where once clients realize that you can provide solutions, then it becomes an asset instead of like a risk.
That's correct. And what you also see that that when, for instance, account managers talk about connections with customers, often let's say the data flow scoping is missing. They say, oh, the connection is technical. Please, here, can I have your REST documentation? And then I ask our tech guys. So it's too soon technical. But we learned, okay, please make a data flow in a high level, so everyone understands. The decision maker of the customer understands that from the eye of, for instance, a user, when he does this on the website, what will happen? What will see another user, for instance, in the back office? That is important. That's what we do. And that then the customer understands, what do you sell? What kind of connection do I get, and how useful is it? And then he agrees, and then you ConnectPlaza, using ConnectPlaza, it can be built. I also often saw that part was skipped. It was soon immediately technical. So the account manager didn't know what he sells, and the decision maker didn't know what he buys.
Right. Instead, you can now focus more on the actual flows and the business requirements.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Rutger, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it, and I wish you good luck on your continued implementation with ConnectPlaza.
That's going well. Thank you.
Reflecta is another ISV partner of Servoi, who is further along in their evolution with offering integrations. they offer a complete ERP for the fashion industry. And this includes catering to fashion brands, but also wholesalers and distributors, also the cut, make, trim type industries, and also including private labels as well. So they really have a comprehensive set of tools for that industry. And on top of their ERP, they also offer like web shop type functionality. And I know that I had spoken with them last year about this, and they were already quite far along after they made they adopted the ConnectPlaza iPaaS. And Dennis, I'm wondering, you worked directly with Reflecta on this?
Yeah, I did actually, and I worked with several people within Reflecta to get the ConnectPlaza adoption started, and they've been using it for quite a long time now. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're not available to join us today, but they were I think one of the first adopters of iPaaS in our community. And from a business perspective, they've definitely leveraged this to become, it's one of their USPs to distinguish themselves in their industry. Maybe Dennis, can you give us some background on what were some of the types of integrations and flows that they needed? I know that they do a lot of connectivity with legacy systems. Is that correct?
That is correct. They do have a lot of you could say legacy integration. That's part of their the main challenges they face. But they also obviously they also are faced with integrating to newer types of platforms, also which are also SaaS or cloud based. They face the challenges of APIs and stuff like that. And Reflecta's been with us for a very long time, and they've been using our software for a variety of very interesting cases. And I think traditionally Reflecta, they started out using our software and the solutions to build more application-based integrations for their on-premise apps, and they to make sure that their connections that would work well with the existing best-of-breed landscapes that their customers usually had, and as well as several B2B and retail platforms such as web shops and trade platforms and shipping systems to make sure that the adoption of their app at their customers would remain successful. And when Reflecta moved to become more of a SaaS app itself, the focus shifted, and they shifted more toward using integration tools to deliver quick and reliable integrations for their tenants in the cloud. Next to, of course, supporting the on-premises and legacy integration as well. And since our platform has solutions for all these different types of groups, using ConnectPlaza was a very straightforward choice. And this just delivers a lot of useful things for them. And it was very easy to bring these integration connectors to both on-premises customers as well as tenants in the cloud. And to enable their customer base with both standard out-of-the-box connectors, as well as several customized connectors. Reflecta's engineers made use of our constructor with the integration building blocks to build connectors, for all kinds of apps, services, legacy as well.
I should point out what we're looking at right now is not their application, but the control center in ConnectPlaza. But this is Reflecta's a screenshot of Reflecta's setup about what you're talking. So I just want to clarify that this is not their application. This is actually ConnectPlaza controlling their data flows.
Yes, absolutely. This is they use our deployment and management apps, as you can see in this slide, and this allows Reflecta to make sure that all integrations work properly and that they can spot whenever problems do occur. And these are definitely some of the core features that they use on top of using the constructor and the building blocks to build, numerous types of integrations that could be as simple as a file-based integration. We talked about legacy. A lot of apps still use files for in and output to get data in and out of their systems, all the way up onto, more aggregated RESTful APIs, and we have the building blocks in place for that.
Yeah. I know the lead engineer at Reflecta, and he told me that they used to code these types of integrations directly, like as point-to-point type of solutions in code.
Yeah.
And spend a lot of time and maintenance on that. And today they spend zero developer time on this. So their developers aren't doing this.
Yes.
Is what he told me.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, and that as a result, they're a lot more productive and stable in their offering. He also told me that they have to transform a lot of data out of files and legacy systems, and he told me that sometimes it's simple, but sometimes it's quite messy. As you know, it can be different data types or formatting, and so the ConnectPlaza transform engine, he had told me that they made extensive use of that, and in fact, we're seeing a screenshot here of one of their or a partial screenshot of one of their data transformations.
Yes.
Which looks kind of frightening, but I gather better to do this in a modeling sense than directly in code and have that be maintained in some dark corner where I think it becomes fragile. Can you talk a bit about the transformation of data as it's flowing through one of the data flows?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, like you said, classically, a lot of this data transformation stuff would happen in code and would, as you say, be programmed somewhere in some dark corner of the application, and that would be a problem, especially when you're trying to transition knowledge across your organization about these types of things. Especially when you want to make reusable mappings, when you want to take knowledge from one data mapping and lay it over to other types of mappings for different types of customers, because that's a very important thing here, is that we're building these integrations, but we want to make them flexible. So you just have to build them once and just customize them for different customers, opposed to building new integrations for each and every customer. And an important part of the product that also Reflecta uses is this mapping solution that we offer to build these graphical views of data structures as they are passed between apps and APIs, which of course ConnectPlaza provides solutions for. And this mapping solution is easy to use, especially when you come from a coding standpoint. This is just it's easy to learn, and it helps in solving some of the more challenging data connectivity solutions. And since these tools can handle virtually any kind of data format, including XML, JSON, classical flat text files, but also more industry standard files like Edifact, it's an essential part of the product. Yeah, absolutely. And these things combined is what made Reflecta choose as an ISV to use these line of products. Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Maybe we're getting into the details a bit of that, but maybe we can zoom out and you can, because I think iPaaS is such a comprehensive thing, and the audience may be wondering a bit, at a high level, how does it work? Can you talk about the different sort of components of an iPaaS and how they're built and how they're deployed?
Absolutely. So as you can see in this picture, we use this picture a lot because it explains a lot about how our product is organized. So basically, our product consists of two major parts. The first part is the part up top here that is the fully SaaS end, and that's what we call the ConnectPlaza Studio. This product lives in the cloud and allows our users in a multi-tenancy fashion to graphically configure integration. And it's based around the drag and drop principle. We deliver all of the integration knowledge of technologies, of protocols and things like that into building blocks. And with just a very simple model, you can just drag and drop and build your integration flows. And it helps our users to go from the process of configuring integration flows all the way through to deployment, which means you'll have to go into like runtime mode, where you actually install your software and get it up and running and deploy your interfaces to the environment that you need, which of course can be dependent on the architecture you're deploying to. If you're deploying to cloud or deploying to the on-prem of a customer, or you're doing like some kind of hybrid solution, that's something we offer. And this is all done from browser-based environment. That's all done from Cloud App. And additionally, users can access the analyze and the monitoring tools, and that makes to help them make sure that the environments are working correctly. And these tools are generally used by ISVs to make sure that whether they're that these environments, whether they're on premises or in the cloud or hybrid, are properly configured. And this really, propels the usability of our platform, and it lowers the threshold for, like we mentioned, more like the business end users, which are not particularly developers or programmers, to use these types of use an iPaaS to go ahead and create their integration. And on top of that, we have the second part, which is our software solution, which we call ConnectPlaza Agent. We particularly chose for this design, as each agent is a standalone engine that can run all these integration flows on any platform. So that's absolutely flexible, either on premises or cloud, on a host of operating systems. And it's a lightweight, flexible, scalable, homemade solution by us to fit the needs of our customers, and it can be easily deployed to any environment. It can be also be embedded into any app. And they'll do all the heavy lifting, including, execution of transport, data mapping, security, reliability, and so on. Yeah.
So I could, in theory, I could design a data flow for some type of integration. And Servoi, as you probably know, is a good bit of our customers may have their application running in the cloud, but they might also have customers that are reluctant or cannot move their application to a SaaS environment, and they run on premise. Could I therefore take and design a flow and then sort of deploy that in these separate environments with maybe different configurations baked into that agent, such that you essentially get a reusable flow, but it's different in the case of an on-premise app is connecting to, say, their QuickBooks Online account for that user, and then I have my version that I run in my cloud, which is connecting on behalf of many different users, for example.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly what we try to achieve, is that, this solution, supports both the classical form of integration where you want to go into the on-prem, connect to local apps, to local data sources, and get data exported or get data transferred to other applications or even cloud-based applications, which is more like a one-on-one, or use the same kind of interface, but just with a different configuration, hook it up onto your cloud platform and have it, run multiple tenants and have it run on for multiple users. And all this should be done with minimal change or even no change, just configuration change. And if you, in the designer, the development tools help you in setting up in such a way that it becomes more flexible and that you only develop it once and then you deploy it in multiple types of fashions. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Can you talk about this is, I guess, zooming in a bit, but can you talk about how, if I want to build a flow, how does it work? What are the components?
Well, I think the key components here are definitely, the tool sets that I just mentioned, and of course our building blocks that we use to graphically and very easily present integration to our users. Since we want to, minimize the technical know-how on the user side, we have implemented our product to be as, standardized as possible. And how we approach this is in every step of the way, starting from the idea in your head all the way to, finding the right blocks and building these flows. We've implemented standard models. We've implemented standardization, which if I could, explain to you like in half an hour how that standard model works, you can use that standard model to build any type of integration. And the good news is if I explain it to somebody else, they can look at your work and understand what you've done without, having to go through 100 pages of manual. And to begin, what we do is we build flows. That's really where we're at. We build flows that can be easily designed as integration channels between apps, APIs, and so forth. And these flows are at the heart of our construction model. Each flow can use several components, or we call them building blocks. And these building blocks come in all sorts and sizes depending on what your user might need. And we have dozens of them in the portfolio, which are part of the iPaaS product. And they can handle, they can handle things like protocol conversion for integrating to files, web services, RESTful APIs, databases, Progress app servers, and other types of things. Even low-level things like TCP or things like that are supported. Just to name a few, there are many more available, but we also include a lot of these blocks that handle, the data and the format conversion between different applications and connections, using these transformers to handle all the different formats as we've seen in the screenshot, which also has a graphical view to it to make that much more easy. And, using these blocks, our users can intuitively build connectors for, any kind of application. And we also offer, these standard building app blocks, which we've been including in the last few versions, which also include standardized blocks for applications such as Salesforce, and which makes it easier, for example, for our customers to use these standardized blocks to connect to, like an app like Salesforce, which a lot of our customers use nowadays.
Right. And that makes sense. I have a question, but then that I figure that if I have a question, probably some of our audience have questions as well. So I'm going to defer my question, and I'm going to talk about getting started, and then I'll leave this slide up while we take some question and answer, because we're getting our time limit here. Okay. I just want to remind everyone that Servoi is an OEM partner with ConnectPlaza, and I'm happy that we can offer the ConnectPlaza solution at a discount, and starting at $9K per year, and then there are some extension packages on top of that, which we could get into in conversation. But we'd like to offer a promotional special if you are excited about this opportunity. You can get a consultation and tell us your use case. I have a poll I'm going to launch, a Zoom poll, and I'm going to leave this up while we do the Q&A. But basically, if you'd like to take a closer look, you can respond in that poll, please. But we're happy to take a look at your use case and see if iPaaS is a good solution for you, or if it's not. I think the right way to approach getting started is a small proof of concept, like a mini implementation, to make sure that it is what you think it is. So we're offering a half price 2-day proof of concept to anyone who would like to do their due diligence work and take the first steps. And of course, the POC fees could apply toward your purchase. So we will waive those fees if you commit to purchase of the iPaaS. Again, if you'd like to get started in Europe, you can contact Rutger de Jong, and in the US, you can contact Ivo Boom. So I'll leave this up. And again, I was going to ask a question, Dennis. One thing that I learned when I was exploring iPaaS was kind of just the whole asynchronous nature of doing it that way rather than writing these point-to-point solutions in code. And we were talking about the components and the data producers and data consumers in a flow. One question I had is, ConnectPlaza make it easy to open up an interface to receive like a webhook callback? So for example, suppose I don't know, I have a Jira integration, and every time someone does something in Jira, I want to expose a webhook callback where Jira calls into my iPaaS, and then I might route that into my application. Or the same could be from Slack or some other service provider. Can you easily expose like a REST endpoint to receive a callback?
Oh, absolutely. That's something that is one of the standard features, actually. So what you would do essentially is build one of our flows, and what you would use is to create a flow that has the components in place to expose that flow as a HTTP or RESTful endpoint. We have these standard blocks for that. And once you use that, you can deploy that flow onto an agent, and that agent will expose an HTTP endpoint on the server. And, depending on some firewall things, maybe, you might do some firewall routing, but basically that's all you need. And you can just point your Slack or Jira configuration webhook URL to point to the HTTP endpoint on the ConnectPlaza flow, and you're good to go. So that part is pretty much just all click, drag, and drop, and all you would have to focus on is getting that hook data into your app, and that's really where your configuration is, to finding out, okay, so I got some data. All right, I want to get this into my app, so I could write it directly into, like, for example, write it to a database, which is a way to do this, or just deliver it to another API, which is just pushing it from one end to the other. But that is just, I think that's the most prudent way to get that going. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I had done this experiment last year with a different tool. And I found that I still had to make that API endpoint in Servoi, which is not hard to do in Servoi, but again, it did go into coding, right? And so it's nice to hear that it's easy to open up an endpoint in ConnectPlaza. Okay, I have a question from the audience. Is what is the learning curve, and what languages do I need to know?
In terms of what languages, I would say. In terms of the knowledge, I would say that some understanding of the systems you're trying to connect with is useful, along with some basic understanding of the data formats you're trying to implement, or you're required to use when integrating to your apps. Usually things like JSON or XML, but they could also be like the export formats that are from the app. Further than that, I would say that no further programming skills are required. So it's all about understanding the process and not about understanding how to develop it. So that's one thing. And usually when it comes to like learning curve, we offer trainings as well. And usually our customers are good to go with a setup with 2 to 3 days of training by one of our trainers. That will cover the whole 9 yards: development, deployment, analyze, the whole thing, and that's usually more than enough to get people started.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in, and we're now above 50 minutes, so I think it's good to wrap up there.
Okay.
I want to give a special thanks to Dennis for taking the time to be with us, and also to Rutger Slaker from STB for joining and talking about their experience as well. And of course, to our audience as well. You can tell I copied this slide. It says see you next week, but in fact, this is the last webinar in the series, so my apologies for that. But again, everyone, thank you, and have a good rest of your week.
Thank you too. You're very welcome.